I had been Willow's simp for 5 years. Her sister had also been my roommate's simp for 5 years. Then, on New Year's Eve, neither of us waited for the person we loved. However, at that exact moment we both received the official announcement of their relationship online. In the end, after thinking it over, Alicia said, "What if we got together instead? We know each other inside out." I nodded. Okay, so, we rushed to try on wedding dresses, book the venue, pick an auspicious date and write the invitations, all with a single goal, to get married before they do. Chapter 1. On New Year's Eve I was in a mall on the main street, watching hydrogen balloons rise while countless couples hugged one another. I was holding a movie ticket, snow swirling around me. I couldn't quite describe what I felt, only that, after loving Willow for so many years, it hadn't come to a good ending. My phone vibrated. I lifted my hand and looked. It was Alicia, Willow's sister. On the chat screen it said, "He didn't come either. Willow, Alicia and I grew up together. Later I fell in love with Willow, and Alicia fell in love with my roommate. I asked her to help me and I helped her. It's a pity that, this New Year's Eve, she wasn't waiting for Makoto and I wasn't waiting for Willow." After letting out a long breath, I was about to leave when I got a call from Alicia. It was noisy on her end, but her voice was clear and tight with emotion. She asked, "Have you seen my sister's post with him?" In that moment a bad feeling washed over me. The hand holding the phone and the other hovering above the screen didn't dare tap. It felt as though the moment I opened the post everything would change. I opened it in the end. Tonight plenty of people were showing off their love with photos, so a quick swipe was enough to see it. When I saw the picture, confusion outweighed grief, because the image they uploaded showed the two of them in their school uniforms. In the photo Willow and Makoto are in the school courtyard, smiling at the camera and flashing the V sign. They look so happy. Yet when Willow and I took pictures together she almost never smiled. Makoto never wanted photos with Alicia, either. Makoto had been my classmate in high school. For a while I lived on campus and often ate with Willow and Alicia in the cafeteria. Makoto came with me and, spending time together, grew close to them. But when did they confess to each other? How is it that Alicia and I look like fools, like moths drawn to a flame? For a long time I couldn't speak. Something was stuck in my throat and I felt terribly low. Alicia's call was still connected, but she wasn't speaking either. At last she asked, "Are you still at the theater?" I answered with a hum. She said, "Then wait for me there, let's watch the movie together." I said, "Okay." Yes, it was awkward, but fortunately she was sharing the embarrassment with me, so it wasn't quite so depressing. While I waited I didn't replay clues about those two. My mind was blank. I felt dazed. It had all happened too fast. I don't know how much time passed. My legs were numb from squatting when I finally saw Alicia appear near the escalator. A few days ago she had dyed her hair a vivid red. She said that everything in the new year would be vibrant, and that red hair meant good things were coming her way. Originally, I'd wanted to dye my hair red too, but she beat me to it. Green didn't feel right, so I simply bleached it yellow blonde instead. When she spotted me, she quickened her pace and walked over. I waved at her and said, "Give me a hand, my legs are a bit numb." Alicia came closer and helped me to my feet. Seeing the resigned look on her face, I laughed. "Not bad, at least we're not sniffling." I thumped my tingling legs with my fists. The mix of ache and relief felt weirdly. That sweet sour sting that actually feels good. She rolled her eyes. "So are you," she shot back. I flicked my hand. Come on, it's almost time." By tacit agreement, we didn't bring it up again. After the movie, I walked her home. Once I'd washed up, I finally saw the message Makoto had sent me. "George, I'm with Willow now. You okay?" I shut my eyes, flopped onto the bed in irritation, and texted back with a blank face, "I'm fine. Who he's with is his business, even if that person is Willow." But I'd treated him like a bro, sharing every scrap of progress in my chase after Willow. He'd even offered me enthusiastic advice. After all these years of pursuing her, they're the ones who end up together. Rage almost filled my chest. I wasn't angry that I hadn't won Willow. Chasing her never meant she had to say yes. She's free to choose. What infuriated me was that Makoto never once told me he was after Willow too. While I was pouring my heart out to him, what was he thinking? Was he laughing at how far above my weight I was punching? Suddenly he felt like a stranger, and a hateful one at that, almost as if he'd guessed how I'd respond. He replied, "Sorry, George, I'm really relieved you're not mad. I never meant to keep it from you, I just couldn't figure out how to start the conversation." The text was too long. I had no interest in reading it carefully. He finished with, "George, how about barbecue at that place on Central Street tomorrow? My treat." He was probing, testing whether I was angry, but we weren't brothers anymore. Let him think what he likes. It doesn't matter. I wrote back, "Not interested. I'm tired. Going to sleep." After a while he stopped texting, and instead Willow messaged me. The person I've always liked is Makoto. He's kept his distance only out of respect for your friendship. Everything he did was for you, but love can't be yielded. George, please don't take your anger out on your best friend. How to put it? I used to like Willow, like her so much it spilled out of everything I did. It feels as if, almost overnight, something inside me has curdled, my stomach turns. How could their feelings be sudden, their being together, all at once? Yet they looked at Alicia and me like a pair of clowns, enjoying the way we doted on them. Then turning around to say, thanks for liking me, but I don't like you. I can accept any outcome, but I can't accept that the woman I've adored for so many years has turned out to be a scumbag. I didn't reply. Instead, I screenshotted both their messages and sent them to Alicia, adding, did you get these too? A while later Alicia sent me hers. It was Makoto's. Pretty much a thanks for liking me all these years speech. Alicia said, tell me, 5 whole years and he never once told me he liked my sister. George, we're not that pathetic, are we, knowing they like each other and still liking them? We chased for 5 years, but we'd like them for even longer, I answered. I'm just damn unlucky to have met them, honestly. I don't ever want to see them again. But chances are I'll run into them tomorrow, and when I do, I'll still have to say, it's fine, it's okay, whatever. It feels fake, but they need to hear it to feel happy, feel justified. Typing that out, frustration surged. I wanted to delete them both and block them. Alicia replied, same here. Just now my sister even knocked on my door to ask if I was asleep. I kept quiet. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. Sad, sure, but after liking him so many years, I can accept it. What really hurts is, why does it have to be those two? Why do they get to do this? Suddenly an idea popped into my head. The very next second Alicia called. Since we were kids the two of us have been restless, wild imagined, our crazy schemes always in sync. I said. You go first, she said. No, you. I pursed my lips. You say it. With a little snort she said. Then how about we pair up? We already know each other inside out. I was silent for a beat. She couldn't see it, but I nodded. Deal. We've got to get married before they do, she said. Deal, I answered. Leave it to me. Chapter 2. Early the next morning, Mrs. Lu pounded anxiously on Alicia's bedroom door, each knock louder than a death chime. Alicia yanked the door open, voice full of irritation, cheeks puffed out. Mom, what are you doing? It's the crack of dawn. She hadn't even finished when Mrs. Lu, trembling with excitement, cut her off. Hurry up and wash your face and get downstairs, quick. Your boyfriend is here to make a formal proposal. Alicia let out a stunned huh, and glanced down the staircase, our eyes locked. She was bleary-eyed, hair in a wild tangle, still wearing pure prison chic pajamas emblazoned with the single giant character prisoner. Before I could say a word, she jolted, darted back into her room and slammed the door. When Alicia finally came downstairs, she had washed up, done her makeup, and changed clothes. My mom saw her and waved gently. Alicia, come have some breakfast first. Your uncle and I picked it up from the tea house. Then she turned to Mrs. Lu with an apologetic smile. I'm so sorry we dropped by on such short notice. Hope we didn't frighten you. Mrs. Lu answered. Oh, what are you talking about? We've watched these two kids grow up. If they want to make the families even closer, I couldn't be happier. Mr. Lu chimed in. Exactly, our families know each other inside and out. No need for a mountain of formalities. Alicia muttered. You work fast. Huh? She sat beside me and picked up a shrimp dumpling. I replied. Weren't you the one who said we have to beat them to it? I promised you. So of course I moved right away. She just raised her brows and said nothing. The two sets of parents were off to the side, talking hot and heavy about the wedding plans. Before Alicia and I could get a word in, my mom clapped her hands and declared, I think the 5th day of the new year is perfect, an auspicious day for weddings. Mrs. Lu agreed. Yes, a lucky day. My mom nodded. Great, then it's settled. Alicia and I stared, dumbfounded, trading a glance. Why are they more anxious than we are? She leaned close to my ear and whispered, both sides probably think we might bolt. Come to think of it, she had a point. My mom's always nagging me. Why do young people these days seem less and less willing to get married? Chapter 3. These days Alicia and I were busy trying on wedding gowns, picking venues and drafting invitations. Willow and Makoto had gone traveling in Sea City, posting one blissful update a day. While I waited for Alicia to change dresses, I stared at the sea behind them in the photo and drifted off for a moment. The plan to visit Sea City with Willow had been made long ago. I'd even told Makoto about it. Sea City is a coastal town. Once, Willow and I had come across a blogger's video of it, both of us fascinated, and we'd agreed to go together when we had time. My idea was to take her as soon as the holidays started, but that day Makoto suddenly came down with appendicitis, so I rushed him to hospital and the plan was put on hold. I never expected that the two who finally went would be them. Alicia asked. What are you looking at? She was wearing an all-white wedding dress, a faint smile on her face. I didn't hide anything, just flipped my phone for her to see. She reached for the zipper. When she looked up I said, "Let me help." After I zipped her up, she finished reading, put my phone back and asked, "Shall we go?" I stared, totally baffled. Go where? She blinked. Will you go there with me? I shook my head, then nodded. Sure. Although Alicia and Willow are twins, after a while you realize they're easy to tell apart. Willow is the lofty, cool, hard to approach type. Alicia's eyes take after Mrs. Lou's, crescent-shaped when she smiles, bright and lovely, her nature gentle yet lively. I said firmly, "Yes, I'll go, but not because they went, rather because I've wanted to for ages." I know, Alicia said, linking her arm through mine as we walked to the mirror. In the full-length glass we looked like a perfectly matched couple. A shop assistant standing nearby chimed in at just the right moment. "Miss, sir, you're the very picture of a talented gentleman and beautiful lady." Alicia lifted her eyes to me. "How about this set? Does it look good?" I thought for a second, frowning a little. "Honestly, it still isn't stunning enough. For you it's missing that final spark." Alicia couldn't help laughing. Beneath the crystal chandelier her eyes were filled with star-like glitter. Another clerk asked, "Sir, miss, are any of these gowns and suits to your liking?" The store manager stepped forward, saw the hesitation in our eyes and said carefully, "Here's the situation. In a few days several gowns will arrive from overseas. Would the two of you be able to wait? I guarantee they're absolute showpieces. We have the designers' images here, and we can explain their concepts to you." She added, "Over here, would that be convenient?" I looked at Alicia for her opinion. She nodded. I smiled. "All right, we'll wait." Chapter 4. A few days later the new gowns arrived, and the manager phoned to tell us to come in and try them on. Alicia said something had come up and she wasn't at home, so I didn't need to pick her up, just wait for her at the boutique. I had only stepped out the door when Makoto came toward me, cheeks ruddy with good spirits, a shopping bag in his hand. Seeing I was on my way out, he asked offhandedly, "George, heading somewhere?" I ignored the question and asked what he wanted. He grinned and handed me the bag. "Brought you some local treats. You know, George, Sea City is exactly like that video you sent me. The sea stretches on forever. It's perfect for taking girlfriend shoots. Every frame comes out great. Oh, why didn't you answer my messages?" His tone wasn't smug or showy, just casually sharing his trip with Willow, like any guy recounting a holiday with his girlfriend to his best buddy. I looked at this person I'd known for years. We were standing so close, yet it felt as if I'd never known him at all. Suddenly his chatter broke off. When I took the bag, I slipped the ring box I was holding into my pocket. His expression turned a touch peculiar. "George, when did you buy a ring?" Returning it. "If I'd told you sooner, you wouldn't have had to." Clearly Makoto had misunderstood, thinking it was the ring I'd planned to give Willow. But this ring was for Alicia, because our wedding was so rushed. We had skipped any formal engagement, but I still didn't want to cut corners, so I'd had this ring custom made. I said flatly, "No." Makoto sighed. "George, some things you really have to let." He opened his mouth again. I cut him short, smiling with only my lips. "I'm getting married." "What?" he blurted, stunned. The moment the words left me, his face froze. "Impossible, it's so fast." "Have you really gotten over Willow?" Realizing what he'd just said, his expression soured. He stared at me in confusion. Inside, I felt nothing, only regret at my poor judge of character. He was sure I couldn't forget Willow so quickly, yet he still chose to flaunt his sweet moments with her in front of me. He patted my shoulder, guilt written all over his face. "Ah, there I go saying the wrong thing again." "George, please don't get mad. When you get married, let us be your groomsmen." "Yeah." He hesitated, then added, "But you're really something, getting married without telling me. I haven't even met my future sister-in-law." Between the lines he was asking me to introduce my fiancée. There's a type of person in the world who covets anything that belongs to others, who enjoys the sense of superiority and triumph in snatching it away. I don't care whether Makoto truly likes Willow, but I do wonder if he ever spared a thought for the girl who, after he tossed off one comment about disliking a vase who couldn't even cook, worked hard to change herself and personally made him breakfast every single morning. "Alicia." I smiled. "Sure," he said. "Really? Then let's go." Because of Makoto's delay, Alicia actually arrived at the bridal shop before me. The moment he saw Alicia appear in the store, the smile on Makoto's face vanished completely. He couldn't believe it. Twitching the corners of his mouth, he asked me, "What's Alicia doing here?" As his pupils dilated in shock, I slowly walked up and wrapped an arm around Alicia's shoulder. The message was loud and clear. Alicia looked up at me with a hint of helplessness, then very cooperatively turned to Makoto and said, "We're getting married on the 5th of next month. You're welcome to come." Makoto murmured, "No way." He shook his head in disbelief. Looking at Alicia's calm expression, He couldn't even form complete sentences. He stammered. You. He was probably trying to say, didn't you used to like me? Oh, really? I looked at him coolly and asked. Makoto, why would that be impossible? If he could end up with Willow overnight, why couldn't we? Just then, the atmosphere dropped into silence. Makoto's phone rang. He snapped out of it like waking from a dream and fumbled for his phone. While he took the call, we had already sat down on the couch, and the clerk had started laying out a row of newly arrived wedding dresses in front of us. I picked a piece of fruit from the platter and popped it into my mouth. Pointing at Makoto's pale face, I said to Alicia, look, even he knows he crossed the line. There's no such thing as truly feeling what someone else feels. I rubbed my chin and asked, hey, you think maybe he still likes you? Alicia glared at me and said, not a chance. Looking at the 5 wedding gowns in front of us, I sighed and asked her, see anything you like? Only then did she lift her head and look. Her eyes immediately locked onto the one in the center, a gown covered in glittering crystals. Its design overflowing with romance and elegance. Under the lights, the diamonds sparkled like the brilliance of stars over a vast ocean. I saw her unable to take her eyes off the dress and waved my hand in front of her. Go try it on. As expected, marriage might not be every girl's dream. But wedding dresses? That's different. While Alicia went inside to change, it was just me and a visibly uncomfortable Makoto outside. After a while, he finally couldn't hold it in and asked, George, how did I never see you were this kind of person? You think this is funny? A grown man pulling this kind of stunt to get revenge, tricking Alicia into marriage just to get Willow to come back to you. I gave him a sideways glance, then lowered my head to continue flipping through the magazine. I replied, what kind of person am I? A hypocrite who plays dirty behind people's backs. Now that would actually be pretty funny. Besides, why do you always assume every guy's goal is to steal your girlfriend? Is it so hard to believe I actually like Alicia? This habit of yours, imagining everyone's out to cuckold you, you should get that looked at. I was ready to keep roasting him, but the next second, Alicia flung the curtain open, and just like that, all the words in my mouth fell silent. I stood there, utterly stunned, and not just me. Even Makoto and Willow, who had hurried in from outside, were wide-eyed in amazement. I felt a surge of satisfaction. If a dress can leave people speechless, the money was well spent. While I walked over to admire her, Alicia whispered to me, tell me, why did those 2 suddenly show up? Then, still preening, she added, take a few shots. Take a few shots. We look so gorgeous in this mirror. I had just raised my phone when Willow, having snapped out of it, suddenly spoke. You're getting married? How come I didn't know? The frown on her brow eased at once. Her tone turned coaxing. Alicia, how can you be so thoughtless? Marriage isn't something you spring on mom and dad without a word. If this gets out, what will people say? Be good, stop throwing a childish tantrum. Makoto, whose face had been sour, seemed to think she had a point. His expression lightened. If Willow, Alicia's own sister, knew nothing about the wedding, it had to be our little play act, right? Makoto said, Alicia, there's no need for this charade. You've never been this willful, and you've been getting colder toward me. Even if we can't be lovers, can't we still be friends? Alicia rolled her eyes. That's rich. Am I supposed to stay warm and fuzzy toward my sister's boyfriend? Still be friends? Do you think everyone is as boundaryless as you are? I'm about to get married, please keep your distance. She paused, then went on. Since you don't believe us, sis, call mom and dad and ask. Alicia stopped arguing and simply held Willow's gaze. Seeing we were perfectly calm, Willow, lips bloodless, turned to me. Is this true? It is, I said, still unconvinced. She dialed her parents right in front of us. The result, yes, we are getting married. Under the dazzling lights the 4 of us stood on opposite sides, and no one said a word. Willow stared at me, dazed, standing beside Alicia. I met her gaze, and suddenly couldn't understand it. She doesn't like me, so why did her eyes redden the moment she heard I'm getting married? I felt Alicia's fingers tighten, almost reflexively, on my sleeve. I patted her back to reassure her. I asked, could you 2 leave now? They looked stiffly at each other. Makoto forced a thin smile. George, didn't you say I could be your best man? In our green youth, Makoto's smile had always carried a hint of shyness. Now it's the easy grin of a sunny adult. Back then, with my arm slung over his shoulder and his eyes brimming with sincerity, he'd said, George, when you get married I'm going to be your best man. We agreed, brothers for life. I'd laughed and answered, of course, and I'll be godfather to your future kid. Now, are you still that Makoto who swore we'd be brothers for life? You're not. Perhaps it was the memories, or the sudden realization that adults who claim to stay good friends often drift into strangers. But a sour, empty ache spread through my chest. Softly, I said, that won't be necessary. For a moment it felt like saying goodbye to a friend who now exists only in memory. Makoto's face went white. He stumbled back a step. George. I no longer cared how much sincerity lay in the way he repeated my name. It simply didn't matter anymore. Chapter 5. With the wedding drawing ever closer, we walked out after picking the venue. I held Alicia's hand to warm her as we tilted our heads to the sky. It had started snowing again. Flakes landed on us, turning our black hair white. Smiling, I lowered my head and asked, "Doesn't this feel like we're literally growing old together? Hair turning white side by side?" She nodded. "Very much so." She nudged me. "It's so poetic, let's take a picture to capture it." "Okay." Later, while packing my things, I found an old group photo in a corner. It was the 4 of us at the school sports meet. I sat on the sofa and wiped the dust off with a tissue. Only then did I notice the split second when Willow's and Makoto's eyes met. I remembered Makoto saying he wanted me to bite the metal for the shot. Who knew the shutter would click before I could? Because both sets of parents were helping. Nearly everything for the wedding was sorted. The next time I saw Makoto was at a restaurant I own. He wore a brown trench coat, unshaven, haggard, slumped in a chair. Seeing me walk by, he made no move to leave. He called out, "George, I regret it." His eyes were slightly red as he looked at me. I said nothing. Gritting his teeth, he went on, "George, Alicia doesn't love you. Your marriage is doomed to fail. So what?" I curled my lip in mockery. "Hand her back to you. Aren't you with Willow?" Alicia hasn't mentioned they broke up. Stumped by my 3 rapid-fire questions, his gaze skittered away. Yet he kept on, stubborn. "If you got sick, would Alicia stay at the hospital night after night watching over you? If she played a game like a total noob and you flamed her until she cried, would she still beg you to carry her? Would she change herself just because of one comment from you and learn to please you? Would she get up at 5 every morning just to cook you breakfast with her own hands? Has she ever even said she likes you? I'm telling you this as your brother. George, it's for your own good. You don't need to fall out with me over a girl like her." I laughed softly. Such touching brotherly concern, and every line really means you want to have it both ways. Huh? Trying to two-time, are we? Absolutely not. Makoto denied it at once. Still calm, I said, "Sorry, but first, Alicia is perfectly fine the way she is. She doesn't need to bend over backwards for me. Change in a relationship goes both ways. Not one-sided sacrifice. Second, everything you just listed will happen with us, except I'm never going to flame her over a game. And Makoto, the fact you can reel off everything she's done for you proves you know how good she was to you. Yet you chose Willow. Stop the fake sympathy. You don't like Willow. You only chased her because I was chasing her. What you love is that little rush of superiority. The thrill of winning." I added, "You know what?" I dug out an old photo of the 4 of us. Enunciating each word, I told him, "I must have been blind to call you brother. Don't ever come looking for me again." The place was quiet at that hour. After I'd taken a few steps, Makoto burst into a near-manic laugh behind me. "Ha ha ha. George, just admit it, you're a loser. Alicia likes me, and even Willow, the one you're so crazy about, likes me. You get nothing. Doesn't that make you a loser?" Just then a waitress came by with 2 bottles of beer. I grabbed them and hurled them straight at him. "Ah!" He let out a piercing scream. "Still feel like barking?" I asked, wiping my hands with a napkin. I gave the waitress an apologetic smile. "Sorry about that." "No worries, boss, he had it coming," she said, then hurried off. "George, you actually hit me." Makoto was a mess now, face twisted with rage. "Keep yapping and the kitchen's hot pot broth base will be next," I said with a grin, then turned and walked inside. Over lunch I told Alicia what had happened that morning. Scowling, she snapped, "Tell me they're not crazy, seriously crazy." At the office Makoto has nothing better to do than lurk downstairs, pretending to run into me. At home my sister's forever sulking and asking why we're getting married if we don't even like each other. I'd had a surprisingly quiet few days, never realized she'd been dealing with all that. I asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" She pouted. Then, with a wounded look, said, "You come home from all the wedding prep and collapse straight into bed. I didn't want to bother you with those 2 weirdos." Sure enough, some people just love eating from someone else's pot and picking wildflowers. Anything pure and clean doesn't interest them. Watching her fuming like that, I asked, "So you really feel nothing for Makoto anymore?" 5 whole years, you know. Suddenly her expression flipped, eyes narrowed in warning. "George, I'm telling you, if you dare leave me alone at the wedding, you are dead." Whoa, calm down, I said. "I'm only asking. 5 years never even earned me a proper glance. How could I expect her to fall for me in a single month?" She snorted. "Then why bother asking? Isn't that obvious?" Mouth twisting, she muttered, "What's going on in that head of yours? Maybe it's like, when you talk to God, that's called faith. When God talks to you." She trailed off with that out-of-the-blue line, leaving me blank for a beat. With a laugh she finished, It means your brain's busted, right? What meme is that now? I asked. Game tonight, duo Q. You play marksman. Oh, ho ho ho. I gave her a sidelong look. Chapter 6. That night I'd been out with some old friends until after midnight. A few drinks had left me more than a little tipsy. I was sprawled on the sofa when, in a dream, someone kept pounding my doorbell, like the Grim Reaper on a deadline. All at once my mind surfaced and I opened my eyes. The bell outside was still ringing. Not a dream. I got up, unsteady, leaned against the wall and wobbled to the door. The moment I opened it I found Willow, bad luck wrapped in human skin. Dad always said a wedding is a joyful affair, and joy mustn't be polluted by ill omens. Frowning, I started to close the door, but Willow clung to the frame and wouldn't let go. Red-eyed, she asked, "George, are you serious? Are you really going to marry Alicia? Have you thought this through? She loves Makoto, you two will never work." She sobbed. "George, don't be impulsive. Don't marry someone you don't even like just to get back at me." I narrowed my eyes, forced down the nausea in my throat, and articulated every word. "I'm deadly serious. I like Alicia, and I'm going to marry Alicia. Is that clear enough? Alicia is wonderful." Whenever the four of us went out, it felt like I was the one killing your vibe. You were forever nitpicking. Either my photos weren't good enough, or the place I chose was wrong, or you'd sulk and make me guess why. Alicia likes the pictures I take, likes the restaurants I pick, never throws a fit at me. Willow blurted. Urgent. I can do that too. I had no idea what was running through her mind when she said it. She pressed on. "George, I regret it. I didn't understand my own heart before. When I heard you were marrying Alicia it hurt so much right here. I got scared. I never imagined a future without you. Ugh." I couldn't hold it any longer and vomited, splattering her from head to toe. "Disgusting. Ugh." I gagged. Her words stopped dead. Her face couldn't have looked any worse. "Whoa. Sis, sorry about that." Alicia had appeared without my noticing, the curve of her lips tinged with unmistakable glee at Willow's plight. She went on, lightly scolding. "Showing up at your future brother-in-law's place in the middle of the night. If people get the wrong idea you'll drag us all down, won't you?" Willow's eyes flew wide, but whatever she meant to say was cut off when Alicia swung the door shut. In the bathroom Alicia dabbed a towel across my mouth and the front of my shirt, her gaze liquid with tenderness. I let out a sigh and asked in a low voice, "When did you get here? How long were you watching? How much did you hear?" She gave a tiny smile. "I showed up the moment you opened the door." "Oh," I muttered, at a loss. Under the bright bathroom light she suddenly asked, "Just now, what photo were you talking about?" My head was still fuzzy. "What?" Softly she clarified, "The part about taking pictures." "Oh, that happened plenty of times, didn't it? Every time we went out I picked the spots. Those two were always unhappy." I drew up the itinerary, booked the tickets. Over dinner they'd gripe that I'd chosen a dud. During photos they'd nitpick nonstop. At the sites they'd moan they were tired, saying I'd picked some crappy place. If they were that exhausted they could have stayed home, lazed in bed or sipped coffee in a cafe. I'd have been perfectly fine with that. Why drag themselves out only to complain? Alicia leaned into my arms, eyes warm. "I get it," she whispered. "I really do." I let out a long sigh. Honestly, there were so many times I wanted to stop chasing Willow, but every time I remembered that middle school speech contest, how she was the only one cheering me on, I'd think, hold on a little longer, just a little longer. Alicia nuzzled me without a word. I went on, "And another reason is that, back then, I'm the one who said we should chase the twins together. Seeing you still going all out after Makoto, I didn't want to rain on your parade." At that she gave a half-angry laugh, snorting. "First time I've heard that pursuing someone is about keeping up brotherly loyalty. Drunkard, talking nonsense," she added, then stood to fetch me some clothes. With a playful wink she asked, "Think you can shower on your own?" I bobbed my head vigorously. "I can," and almost pitched headfirst into the tub. My balance shot. Alicia grabbed me in alarm. "Hey, watch where you're crashing." Then, biting her lip, she muttered under her breath, "Whatever, going to see it all sooner or later anyway." A heartbeat later she barked, "Hands. Keep those hands to yourself, you perv." "I'm not a perv, I'm your future husband," I protested. She quirked a brow. "And whose husband again?" "George," I answered. "And whose wife?" "Alicia," I said. Chapter 7. On our wedding day Alicia and I were both terrified the other might bolt, so we made each other stay on video call right up until the ceremony began. Once it started, Mr. Liu took Alicia's hand and led her, step by step, toward me. He placed her hand into mine. Her slender fingers were warm and soft, and as I looked at the smiling woman in front of me I thought, Willow and Makoto were right about one thing. At first Alicia and I got together simply to make a pair, to keep all those years of one-sided devotion from looking quite so pathetic. But later, we truly did want to walk to the end together. Our minds clicked. The give and take ran both ways. If we went hiking, no one complained about whose idea it was. We enjoyed the scenery, snapped photos, and climbed all the way to the summit together. In the end, Willow and Makoto never made it. Both of them cheated. No one knows which happened first, Willow traveling with her older upperclassmen and booking the same hotel room, or Makoto pairing off with an intern from the office. Their affair partners kept changing, one after another. Eventually each of them got hard proof of the other's cheating. The breakup was ugly, so loud it even hit the local news. My former future in-laws were so furious and humiliated they could hardly show their faces in public. One evening, after all this had blown up, I came home to find a hot meal Alicia had cooked. I watched her busy silhouette in the kitchen, and couldn't help walking over and wrapping my arms around her from behind. She smiled and asked, "What's this all about?" I slipped my arms around her waist and muttered, "I've only just realized, to love someone you need loyalty, to keep on loving, patience, and in the end, conscience." Who knew living those words could be so hard? "George, did you cheat on me?" she gasped, spinning round with the kitchen knife still in her hand. I gaped at her. "Are you crazy?" "Scared me to death," she said, pretending to let out a relieved sigh. I asked, "Thinking about it now, if we'd ended up with them, do you think they'd have cheated on us too?" Alicia snorted. "Change maybe to definitely." She didn't even want to talk about her sister. "She's driven Mom and Dad up the wall. Lou Corp's stock is about to hit limit down, and Dad's threatening to cut her off. Good thing we struck out on our own," she added, "or we'd be furious too. People who treat love lightly won't change just because the partner is different." I watched Alicia cooking my favorite soy sauce chicken and swallowed. Last year, when we went to Sea City, a coastal town famed for seafood, I fell hopelessly in love with white-cut chicken, scallion oil chicken, soy sauce chicken, salt-baked chicken, hand-shredded chicken. Of them all, soy sauce chicken is my true love. The rich savory sauce soaks every fiber, the meat silky tender, one bite and you never forget. "Thanks, wife," I said, and kissed her cheek. She shivered, then tapped her lips. "They say they want one too." With a grand sweep of my hand I declared, "Then kisses all round."